Hey guys, this week's podcast features stand-up comedian Kristen Becker, who's also the general manager of Buffalo's Helium Comedy Club. Kristen came down, talked about Buffalo's comedy scene, her start in the comedy world, and Helium's plans for 2013. Let's get to it.
So how has it been like the last couple months now that Helium's been open? The schedule has been super impressive. Every week it seems like there's a national person coming to the club.
There will be a national person every week, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we still support local. We still support, but yeah, that's what we do, and it's been wildly successful, honestly. Like, I'd love to be like, we're just starting out. Nope, doing really well. Tickets go on sale for Dave Attell tomorrow. Everyone's excited about that. Yeah, I mean, it's we are pleasantly surprised. My bosses are. I kind of had a feeling, like I knew it was something that Buffalo really needed, and I mean, we'll see how the summer goes. Buffalo really likes to be outside during the summer. But,
yeah, exactly.
But I think we're going to attract people in with our big, nice patio, and then once it gets dark, we'll throw them into the showroom, and we're booking. We got Jim Jeffries coming this summer. Mark Maron's coming this summer.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, I
Basically,
know, right?
this podcast was started.
Doug Benson's coming this summer.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
Like this podcast was started based on my love of WTF.
Oh, really?
And I wanted to create like something like that, but with like food people in the area.
Sure.
And so I am the biggest Mark Maron fan, and that.
Well,
just made my day.
I will let you know when those tickets are happening, because I know he's confirmed.
That's
for the summertime.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's
mean,
great.
was it literally that we just didn't have like a proper venue in terms of size and atmosphere that we couldn't have gotten these?
I mean, yes and no. It takes a few things. Myself as an independent producer, promoter prior to Helium, I was using Nietzsche's, and we could get 250 in there, but I love Nietzsche's.
Yeah.
But is someone from Orchard Park gonna come to Nietzsche's and spend $25 to sit on my wooden folding chair, with cobwebs probably
and drive to
not.
Allentown and park.
Right, and find nowhere to park and right, exactly. Yeah. So it took a few things. I mean, definitely a dedicated space is huge, you know, and the guys from Helium were just the right team. Mark was just the right guy, because I've been working for myself for almost 12 years, so you've got to be smarter than me if I'm going to work for you. Otherwise, I'm going to be an asshole. I can't work for people who are dumber than I am. And if somebody would have come to me and said, I've got all the money, let me tell you how to do it, I would have been like, no, you don't know shit about comedy, so you can't do that. You know what I mean? But here's a guy who had capital and knowledge and connections in the industry, so it's a little bit easier to get. Yeah,
there's already a legitimacy behind the product, like,
absolutely,
that you're selling to these national acts.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
You've already gone to Portland and Philly and played those clubs. They're good clubs. We treat you well, so here you go.
That is pretty cool to be associated with, like, Portland and Philly, like two really up and coming, like that were on that short list of like 3 cities that very rarely happens when there's like a really cool store, really cool product, and you look at the locations and it's like, oh yeah, those are all the food.
Yeah, like the old Hard Rock shirts, right? Where they're just be on the bottom.
Yeah. Now that Buffalo has that little niche, that's really cool.
It's fun for me, and I think it's really. I'm literally watching the comedy scene explode. Yeah. Like our open mic is Wednesday night. We had 100 people in the audience to watch open mic last week.
That's pretty unusual.
Yeah, and I've been around the Buffalo comedy scene for about 7 years now, and I knew of the 20 people, I knew 6 of them on the lineup.
Wow.
So like weekly we're getting like 10 brand new people who, and maybe they're only going to do it the one time, or maybe they're going to, but generally speaking, I'm literally watching
that's awesome
comedy become a thing, a real industry kind of thing in Buffalo, which is
exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
So while I was working today, I listened to your album on Spotify to like kind of prep myself.
I still haven't listened to it.
Oh, really?
I was there. What am I going to listen to? I mean, I listened to it in the mastering of it, like when I was in the booth with the guy.
Yeah. Make sure
cut out a few things.
Make sure the laughter sounds good.
But generally, the way I feel about live comedy recordings are either you nailed the show or you didn't. And so I was like, what am I going to do? Go back and beat myself up over?
Not add fake laughter or anything.
No. Either you get them or you don't.
But like I'm a huge like comedy album like fanatic. Like it's one of my like my wife makes fun of me because I'm a nerd, and I love like listening to like Patton Oswalt and all those David Cross CDs, and but I really liked it. Like I'm not even bullshitting you. Like I guess like I had this like thought of Buffalo comedy without ever actually listening to Buffalo comedy.
A lot of people do.
That I just assumed that it wasn't as good as what you watch on Comedy Central or things, or that it couldn't. Like I had the same thing with like Buffalo bands. Mm-hmm. Like I would see like shows for Buffalo bands. I'm like, I don't want to see a shitty local band. Like I would just wait for the national act. But I'm like both of those. I'm like, wait, there's actually good products that are being served here.
It's something that happens in Buffalo as a culture. Like we've been browbeaten for so long that we have the mentality like, well, if it's from here, why would they? If it can't be any good. If you were any good, why would you still be here? Right? Like that's the that's the mentality.
Exactly.
But I'm really proud of that CD. Actually, it's a little bit shorter than I liked, but the reality was I had a lot of things going on. I just wanted to get something out. But it was. It was recorded by Buffalo people. It was mastered by Buffalo people. The design work was done in Buffalo. It was all self-produced. Yeah. And it got picked up by Spit Take, which is a national magazine. Mm-hmm. Got a great review. Got a great national review. Mm-hmm. And I'm just now starting to market it. Like I recorded it, and then Helium came about, and so I had this finished product, but I was like, oh, but I'm going to do this now instead.
Yeah, that's going to take up the next 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Year. Yeah. Yeah. So. But thank you. That means a lot. I like it when people who know comedy listen to it and get that it's got legs.
Yeah, I was laughing pretty good at my desk today.
Good.
And so I thank you for lightening my day as I stare at Excel spreadsheets.
Thank you for your 0.03 cents from Spotify that I'm going to get in a big fat check later.
Anytime I can. But when I listened to it, you mentioned in the beginning of it that you grew up in Buffalo until you're about 10, you said, and then you moved to Louisiana.
Yep, Shreveport.
That had to be a pretty drastic change of scenery.
It was a real drastic change of scenery. It's not funny, but in retrospect, it was totally different. Yeah. I got made fun of because I talked funny. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, and then it was really interesting because I would spend my summers up here. Yeah. Like when school was out, I'd come up here and hang out with my extended family. Yeah. And so I'd get made fun of down there for sounding like a Yankee, and then I'd get made fun of up here for sounding like a hick. Yeah, right. Yeah. Like I remember being down there, and I went to Catholic school my whole life, and down there they had like the full nun. The nuns were in the full habit and the whole 9 yards. And I was in line in the cafeteria, and the lady behind the line asked me if I wanted something, and I said yes. And I got smacked on the back of the head. And they're like, yes, what? I was like, yes, please. And they're like, no, you say ma'am. You say yes, ma'am. And I was like, oh, okay, shit. Yes, ma'am. And then I come back to Buffalo that exact summer, and somebody's mom asked me something, and I say, yes, ma'am. And she smacks me, and she's like, you're being a smartass. And I'm like, you can't win. I cannot. There's no... Yeah. My first memory, actually, of Shreveport, Louisiana was a Klan rally. What? In a Rite Aid parking lot. Yeah, it was like 1980.
In the 80s? I mean, I'm from Buffalo. Like,
it was a peaceful demonstration.
My knowledge of the Klan is like Mississippi Burning. Like, that's about it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I have this theory about the North and the South because I do love them both equally. Yeah. I'm going to New Orleans next week, literally, because I'm kind of starved for my Southern culture.
And part of the reason I even knew you had a Louisiana connection is I think we have a mutual friend, James Roberts.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've seen you guys talk about like the Saints and things like that, and just in general, like Louisiana. I was like, how the hell is that connection?
No, because once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. It's just something about Southern Louisiana. But it's one of those things that I found that in the Deep South, you have a small group of people who are really racist, like kill you racist, right? Okay, yeah. And in the North, everyone's just a little racist. So like, there's just like a different, like there's still racism. It's just concentrated in different ways. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Because, or how proud they are.
Well, yeah, and because I didn't grow like if you're in the South, there's no not knowing what an African American person looks like or the culture
Very true.
is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's predominantly black, where you could go to many neighborhoods in the North and in Buffalo where you just don't see a black guy.
I grew up in Orchard Park. So.
Exactly. You had no idea.
No.
And so
except for the Bills that lived in our neighborhood.
Right, yeah. And they don't count. No. They're millionaires.
Yeah, it was a little different. Yeah.
So yeah, that was what I found to be the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And I got made fun of a lot for the way I talked.
How long did you live in Louisiana then?
Moved down there till I was 10. Stayed through high school, couple of colleges. Moved to Texas for a little while. Moved back to Louisiana. Moved to Buffalo for a few months. Went back to Louisiana. Moved to Toronto and back to Louisiana. Yeah, I mean, I've been a little bit of a gypsy in my wanderings.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of of like the life of a comedian. I feel like that.
I think so.
Yeah.
From
what I've gathered from listening to WTF.
Yeah. And then I ended up back here and realized it was a good base to start any kind of entrepreneurial touring or Dykes of Hazard or anything else. Yeah, exactly. If your rent's only X amount of dollars, and a couple shows go wrong, you're like, it doesn't matter. I've only got to send $250 back home. It's fine,
So did you start like doing like stand-up comedy back in Louisiana, or where did that kind of start?
The first thing I ever did was I took a comedy class at the Funny Bone way back in the day at the Boulevard Mall.
Okay.
And then and it was an ex-girlfriend of mine actually who's now married with 5 kids. Found Jesus. Yeah. Anyway, she had gotten me a comedy class.
It's like just creating material for you, just like
really, born again Christian. She was Jewish prior.
Wow.
Found Jesus, which is a big search. Yeah. But very nice girl. Uh-huh. She had bought me a comedy class thing for Christmas from the Funny Bone, and she was super supportive and super encouraging of it. And there's the Humber School of Comedy in Toronto. Is basically they took the idea of a theater degree, and they revamped it all to comedy, right? Yeah. So you can actually get a 2-year degree in comedy. Mm-hmm. So it's stand-up, sketch, improv, acting for television, entertainment management, business management. Mark Breslin, who owns Yuck Yucks, is the board chair, and Mike Myers, I think, was on the board, or Colin Mockery, or like a bunch of Canadian. Yeah. So I auditioned for that. When was 9/11? 2001.
Yes.
That's how I remembered when I went to comedy school, because it was September and I was in school up there and shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was and I spent a year just ingrained in doing nothing but comedy.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. It was like kindergarten for 20-year-olds. Yeah. And we're all just like, doing sketch and learning how to fall, and it was great. And then after that, I got offered a gig on the road in Louisiana. I ended up back in Louisiana, and then that's how I ended up in New Orleans. And then about 3.5, 4 years into New Orleans, I recognized that as a human being, I need a last call. Like, it's just something I need in my life. I don't have the capacity to just self-discipline.
You don't have that like little voice that's like,
no, hey, this could kill you. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. So I think,
in all fairness, though, it seems like New Orleans is the place that like just encourages that more than many.
No, it does. I mean, it like, because I've never like drank while I worked. Like, for me, drinking or smoking weed or anything is always like what I do when I'm done working.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, that's my relaxation.
Yeah.
Where like down there, they're like, "Hey, you got to be at work at 3. Let's go for Bloody Marys before we go." And I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'll tell you the story of the night. The night I knew I had to leave New Orleans, it became the morning I knew I had to leave New Orleans, and I was leaving a place called Snake and Jake's Christmas Bar and whatever, Snake and Jake's, and it was in a residential neighborhood, and it was an after hours place, right?
Nice.
And it's just like, it's very much like this, actually. Like, this could be the bar, only it would be dark, right? But same height ceilings, and like you're in like a residential basement,
This
and you're
is clearly
drinking.
a house at one point.
Absolutely. And I left there, and I was still in my black and whites. I left there at 9 a.m. or 8:30 in the morning, and I was still in like my waiter's uniform from the night before. I was driving home. That's the best part.
Yep.
I'm driving home with one eye covered, like one hand over my eye, and there's a woman jogging next to me, right? And I'm behind a school bus. Wow. And I just had this moment where I was like, "Oh, you're an asshole, and you would probably better rethink the path your life is going on." 3 days later, I was packed up and headed back to Buffalo.
Nice.
Like, literally, I was like, "I gotta go, guys. I'm fucking falling apart." But when shots are free almost, and, you leave. I would leave work at this real nice restaurant with a couple $100 cash in my hand, and there's just signs that are like, "Drink." All right.
Yeah.
And you're mad because you just had to wait on nasty tourists who, get drunk. So now I'm working on returning to New Orleans as a grown-up.
Nice.
Yeah, my plan is to maybe get a house or two here and then have a place down there, and then I could do my life plan is the 50-50 split. Because
that's a pretty nice plan.
I really need it. I mean, I miss Louisiana when I'm not there, and I miss Buffalo when I'm not here, and I was just raised to have both. And so I got to figure out how to do it.
That'd be a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, it's pretty. I like it. That's one of the pluses of Buffalo. You can get a couple of income properties and keep a little apartment up here, and then live wherever the hell you want, and show up for May to September, and then To me, that's ideal.
Yeah. If I could, yes, then I would do the exact same thing.
Yeah, why not?
So, I mean, maybe even to go a little bit further, like, were you a fan of comedy growing up? Like, did you have your comedians, like your
Carlin?
Yeah.
Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
Bill Hicks, my cousin Chris, lived in Houston at the time.
Nice.
And he had given my parents Rant and E Minor. The first stand-up I heard, like audio CD, was Rant and E Minor by Bill Hicks.
That's a great start.
Right? Yeah. And then I would watch all the time. My mom really liked to watch like Elaine Boozler and like Rita Rudner and Judy Tenuta and like all those. So I was watching that, and then I always tell people that like George Carlin taught me to be really super observational and taught me to pay attention because I wasn't allowed to watch him when I was really young, like 11, 12. Like, of course, why would you be? Right?
Yeah.
But I had cable in my room. And I was upstairs in my bedroom, and I knew that the third step up creaked. So I would listen to George Carlin like on really, really quiet. And then I would listen and then when it would creak, I'd like change it to Nickelodeon or whatever you're supposed to do, right? But so I always like, it's impressed in me that like George Carlin taught me to pay attention. because the only way I could get away with watching George Carlin was if I was kind of also listening for my dad to catch me, you know?
Yeah.
But those are probably and now growing up, as a grown up looking back, like Elaine Boozler did. I don't know if you know much about Elaine Boozler.
Not too much, no.
She was like the first woman at the White House press correspondence dinner, and like in the mid 80s, they wouldn't like HBO wouldn't spend money producing a woman's 1 hour.
I see.
Because we're not funny, and so she ended up producing her own like HBO.
Okay.
Like she was really very at the forefront of like women becoming their own producers and just doing things for themselves and stuff. And so I'm kind of hoping to get her in here. I'm talking to her, and I'd love to. I'm kind of tossing around this idea of doing like a Throwback Thursdays, where we bring in like some people who you haven't seen in forever, but were brilliant. And maybe they're not going to sell out a whole weekend, but you could sell a night. You know,
that'd be.
So I think it'd be really fun.
Yeah, I think like this is embarrassing. My first George Carlin memory is that he was on like the PBS show Thomas the Tank Engine.
Okay,
and he was like the conductor.
Yeah,
and so I had no previous knowledge of him as a comedian. So I'm like watching it, and I remember my grandmother came into the room and saw George Carlin on the TV and was like, "What are you watching?" and like lost it. And then like my mom had to like be like, "No, he's clean. He doesn't. He's not very dirty. It's a children's show." And then like later on, I was like, "Oh, okay, now I get it."
Do you ever watch any of his like early? Because you know,
like the words you can't say on television early.
No.
Earlier before that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, see,
no.
no.
Listen. Okay, this is the comedy nerd in me, and this is really, it's something that I feel really strongly about, how when comedians they're never successful until they know their own voice and they're allowed to use their own voice. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at Dave Chappelle and how many series they tried to cram him into. And the minute they were like, all right, do your own thing, just blew up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you go to like 60s Carlin, he's in a suit and a tie.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. Like he really, like if you look up old Carlin, really like figuring out who he is.
Yeah,
you know? And then look at like Carlin of the late 70s, early 80s. It's like two completely different animals.
Yeah.
You know? Same thing with Louis C.K. I mean, Louis was good, Lucky Louie, but like once they were like, here, do what you want to do.
Yeah, here's
and then,
200,000. Make your own show.
Make your own, and it's perfect because he gets to be that. Because that's the thing about stand-ups. Like we are the writer, we are the director, we are the actor.
Yeah.
Like we're the entire show.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's all us, you know.
Yeah.
We can't blame a shitty script, or we can't blame a shitty director.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it's kind of just a random.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously are a comedy nerd.
Yeah.
I mean, as you become a comedian and you do it for more and more, you get more experience and more on the road. Like, do you actually stop listening to comedy albums? Is there a part where you're afraid of absorbing too much?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I've always tried to, like, when I was running the open mic forever, I try to not hang out in the room, and because you will absorb stuff. But then at the end of the day, the reality is, we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah. There's so many topics that you can
There's only so much that you could possibly talk about. So you try to avoid consciously stealing. You know what I mean? Like I never tried. I actually had a thought about a joke that was kind of similar to somebody, and I called them up. I was like, "Hey, what do you think?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "No, I think from that angle, you're good." You know. But I mean, I think that goes back to developing the voice, because we are all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
But no one's lived my life.
Exactly.
Right? So if I can really make it my voice and my perspective and what I think and the way I view it, once my point of view and I've got that nailed.
Yeah.
I think that's what, and you see it when you see stand-up comedians in movies.
Yeah.
They're generally playing themselves.
Yeah, they're not really stretching.
No, because that character is so well defined and they've worked it out so well that you just have to find the right script to plug it into and use that character, you know? So I think it's more about once you're comfortable enough in your own skin and you've been on stage enough and you know who you are and you know what you have to say, that even if the topics are similar, your voice is going to be what differentiates it from somebody else, you know?
Yeah. So how long do you think it took you to really get comfortable in your in your voice and your
I
angle?
think that I might start hitting my stride next year. I feel like it took me about 4 or 5 years. When I started Dykes of Hazard, it really helped. Yeah. Just because it got me on the road to a lot of different places and a lot of different cities and a lot of different types of venues.
So a lot of reps and a lot of different audiences.
Like any other job, you know, it's like the more you do it, the more you know what you can get away with. You know, your first day at work, you don't know when you could take a smoke break. You don't know when the boss is going to catch you. You know, when can I go on Facebook? Yeah. But by after the first year, you're like, well, I know he's going to be in the bathroom from here to here, so I could do this. You know, so it's like anything else. Like, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And I think the biggest problem with new comics or people who are trying it out or people who think they understand it is they just see us talking, so they think they can do it.
Yeah.
Immediately. And they think they can do it that well.
Yeah.
Like I would never walk in here and be like, I've been watching guitar for a long time. Give me that. Give me that guitar. I can play that guitar. Never.
No.
Right? But you walk into a comedy open mic, you're like, I talk. Give me that mic. And people think that like that's something that they can do. Right? I think that's probably the biggest misconception is like just because we're talking doesn't mean we haven't thought this through and talked it out 1,700 different ways. You know?
Like you've with your pedigree, you kind of became like one of the premier voice in Buffalo's comedy scene. And when you started doing like the Nietzsche's things, like it seemed like, obviously I would assume that all the comedians up and coming, you know, would perform or ask you for tips and things like that
all the time.
Is it like watching like somebody go up for like a mic and like, is it hard to just be like brutally honest, or is that
I don't know how to be anything but, and so which is why I've stopped giving advice. Like it's really like it's actually part of why I started teaching a class, because it's not that I believe that I don't believe I can make anyone funny.
Yeah.
I believe that I can guide people who are funny and kind of go, hey, here's some things it took me, you know, $500 and half of my liver to learn at a bar at open mic night. Yeah. You just give me $100, I'll give you the secrets and go on about your business. You know what I mean?
I'll save 2 years on your life.
Yeah, absolutely. But it got to where there was so many people that, I mean, you can only help so many people without going crazy.
Yeah.
And without and I was so accessible because I was there that I was like, well, take my class. And then at least I felt like it's being contained to these 2 hours on Saturday morning where I'm asking these questions and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, I mean, I want the scene to grow. I want to give as much as I can. But at the end of the day, people kind of forget that at that point, there was really just me and a couple of the other guys. Yeah. Now there's, you know, Matt Bergman and Mark Walton and Rick Matthews and all these guys now that kind of take some of that off of me because
so
guys are going to them. Yeah, because they're going to them to ask them questions, and they're going to, and I'm like, great, because when there's 100 of you and 1 of me, I fucking hate all of you. To be honest, like, no, it's a shitty rape joke is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to say. So what do you think about, I think you'll be funny in 2 years, but until then, fuck off. You know what I mean? Don't come to me with that. Don't come to me with that.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason like I was always nervous about going to open mic nights is just because I feel like I would get uncomfortable watching somebody who just tanks.
Oh, you will, but that's really a fun time. Like, here's the thing. I've always believed that honesty is the best policy in an open mic room, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I used to run Nietzsche's where if somebody sucked, I was not going to get on stage as the host and be like, give them a round of applause. I would be like, sorry, guys, let's keep going. And then that would get a laugh and be like, oh, yeah. Because, you know, you try to foster an appreciation for stand-up where people will go, they get it, and they get the love of watching people bomb. Like, when you're in the room, the feel is so much different than if you're watching it on television.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it does get awkward. It's real awkward, but it's kind of fun. Like, it's not you, you know, you're not up there.
It's kind of like people who would go to like a NASCAR race, but really they're just there to see the horrible crash.
Absolutely.
Like, I was trying to think of like the mindset of somebody who like just like goes to an open mic. Like, I feel like they're going there just being like, let's see what tire fire comes out of this.
I think it's a little bit of both. I wish there were people who were like stoked for that. I think sometimes they're like, they're all going to be like on TV, and we're like, no, they're not. They're not. Even the guys who can perform like they're going to be on TV are working out new jokes tonight, so they might suck. But I think the joy of open mic is they're normally $5 or less or free, right? It's usually $5 or free. And you get about 20 comedians, and out of those, 5 or 6 of them are usually pros.
Yeah.
A couple of them, it's their first time, which is just exciting too. And, And then there's the rest, and the rest is just what it is. And sometimes,
like the funny guy from The Office, who like everyone's like,
oh man,
I really crack him up at work.
Oh yeah. That's like the standard line. Is like, well, my friends say I'm really funny, so.
Can you almost already tell, like before they go on stage? Like, is there like
I mean, at this point, it's not often that I get surprised, but at this point, there's a doucheometer that just kind of goes off in my head. That's just like, oh, this guy, right?
That's great. So, what I've noticed is, and I don't know if this is, I mean, the acts you're bringing into Helium are fantastic, but then like something happened this summer where like Kleinhans is getting huge comedians.
Well, what happened was we opened up the market. I mean, they basically went, wait, Helium thinks there's comedy to be sold in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Let's sell it.
Yeah.
And so their agents are now calling Kleinhans and calling the Riviera and calling these places. And so
it was like out of nowhere. Like, I think back to back, it was like Aziz Ansari, Bill Burr, and Louis C.K.
Yep.
And I was like, when have those people ever been in Buffalo?
I know, right? And Louis has before. Actually, it's funny because I met Louis in Toronto. Louis, you know, we go way back.
Yeah, on a first name basis.
No, but I met him in Toronto after things shortly and had talked about bringing him to Buffalo, and it was right when the market crashed.
Yeah.
And my backer like lost half of her worth, and I was like, well, I guess I can't bring in Louis C.K. anymore, you know? My goal now is to try to get those guys to do drop-ins. I mean, because that's really, that's what a real scene has.
Yeah.
When you've got a guy who's playing a theater, but they know there's a 10:30 Saturday night show, so they swing by the club
like the Comedy
at
Cellar.
midnight. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Comedy Cellar, and they hop on stage and they work out some new stuff. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to start have happening. If I could talk these,
you can have Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle have a 3-hour.
Right, and because Helium has such a good reputation, it's not unheard of. You know, like they might not stop by Kristen Becker's Chuckle Fuck or whatever, you know, but like they're totally gonna stop by Helium maybe and drop by, and you know, if they're working out new stuff or. That's the kind of stuff that really excites me. Those kind of like awesome moments that happen when you have an awesome dedicated space.
Those like urban legend, those it was me and 40 people.
Yeah. And Louis C.K. walked in. Yeah. It happened to my friend, one of the founding members of Dykes of Hazard, Linda Ellis in Toronto. She runs a Tuesday night show at Yuck Yucks there, and Sarah Silverman walked in. I was like, hey, can I get on stage? She was like, no. She was like, yeah. But, you know, just because she was in town filming a movie and needed a mic and showed up at this Tuesday night.
That is the dream.
It's fun, right?
So how has the actual process been of the whole Helium process? Because I have to first apologize. I feel like a dick that we kind of outed the Helium was coming.
No, it was fine.
Before. So that day was insane because we got like 4 random things about like 4 different restaurants that were closing. And I didn't really know too much about it. So like people were just like throwing rumors at us. Like, hey, we heard that Benchwarmers and WJ Morrissey's closed and something's going in. So I was like, all right, I'm posting it.
Yeah.
And then I saw your tweet and I was like, oh shit. Like I fucking
we just didn't have anything set up yet. Like we didn't have a Twitter set up. We didn't have anything set up yet. And so we were just trying to it's fine. It was fine. The process took about, I don't know how much you know backstory of like how it all came to pass.
I think I listened to your podcast with Brad Ryder, and I think you kind of touched on
Maybe. I can't keep track. Sorry. I mean, I love Brad, but you guys all look alike. Straight white men all look the same to me. Sorry. Can't tell you apart.
Yeah.
So, a little over, at this point, almost 2 years ago, Mark Grossman, who owns Helium, called me.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to use, he also owns Seat Engine, which is a ticketing site.
Okay, that's what it was, yes, the
exactly.
ticketing thing.
And so... that happened, and he really wasn't into the idea of Buffalo, but then he started doing some market research, and here we are.
Yeah.
The process itself, I mean, we started construction in, I guess, June, July, and we were done by December.
That's pretty good.
And opened and running, and it was a crazy process.
How hard was it finding the location? Like, was that like kind of your ideal location right there?
I was adamant about it being downtown.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I really cared about. I was adamant about it staying within the city limits and that we could build the kind of comedy that Buffalo's comedy voice needed to come from a city center and not from the suburbs. Mm-hmm. Because I think that
you don't want that in Amherst or something like that.
I just feel like we're a little rougher than that. And I feel like there's a difference between urban comedy and suburban comedy.
I agree with that.
And that's not who I am. I'm not really family friendly, and I'm not suburban palatable, and I'm none of those things.
Yeah.
So they actually, Mark flew in, and the day he flew in, he basically said, all right, we're going to fly to Buffalo and just check it out. And this was after about a year of me kind of going, hey, we should try to do this maybe. And he was like, you're cute. No. Like that was really, but to his credit, he never stopped listening.
Yeah.
Like I'd bring him a venue. I went and I shot, the old Yaya's Brew House.
Oh, yeah.
He shot video and because it was dirt cheap because it was sitting empty forever, right?
Yeah.
So shot video and sent it, and he's like, no, it won't work because of this, this, and this. I went to the show place, and he's like, oh, it won't work because of this, this, and this. But he just kept going. And he goes, finally, he's like, I'll just come there and find some, we'll look. And the day he came here, Morrissey's and Benchwarmers became open.
Oh, wow.
Like literally that day. And so, we went, we looked at it. He goes, I think this might be it. And he flew back to Philly. And at 7:30 the next morning, I got an email, and I was like, "Oh, did you leave your purse? You want to come back by?" And that was it.
Wow.
He spent about a month or two in lease negotiations, and from what I understand, I am partnered with a very intelligent man because all the guys that work for Savarino were like, "Man, he can vet a lease like nobody's business," and and he does that stuff, and I do this part, and Helium comes with a full team.
Yeah.
There's a great marketing team. The whole team is great. A lot of them have been there from the beginning. His first club in Philly opened 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And the team is pretty much intact from that, which I think speaks volumes of of the people who own it and run it and how they treat their staff. And
yeah.
I've got a great staff at the club. I've got Chef Fritz, Dave Fritz, who used to be at the Frog Hair Grill. We got him because while it's a comedy club, we also know that food's important in Buffalo. And so we have... Have you been down? You haven't been down yet.
I've not been down
Listen,
yet. I know.
Come on.
I know.
Well, come down.
Yes.
But
I will be.
We made it a point to make sure that our food was better quality than comedy club food.
Yeah.
Because we are right by the canal side.
Yeah.
We are right by the arena.
Yeah.
We don't want people to just think we have the comedy club, but then we also have a bar and a restaurant that people are welcome
nice
to.
Pregame before a Sabres game. Or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah. My operations manager, a guy named Andy, he's great. I mean, we have a really good. I'm really impressed with, let's see, so it's March, it's April, and we opened in December, and I got a great team.
Running
I have a great staff.
Machine.
Honestly, I really do. I have a great team.
I mean, how is that transition of more focusing on teaching and doing stand-up and touring, and now kind of more like managerial?
It was the most, I hate it. Well, I used to be a restaurant manager. I have a background in that. I have a background in restaurants, and I have a background in theater and show production, and it's kind of a hybrid of all my things. But the reason, and the other thing that I like about the people I work for is they're pretty fluid, and they're kind of getting me more as we go on, and because Mark never knew me as a performer.
Okay.
So the guy who owns Helium, you got to understand, only knew me as a show producer.
Okay.
So whether or not I was talented as a comic or whether or not it was irrelevant to him because that wasn't what the purpose I served.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what we realized about a month and a half in, about 6 weeks in, we realized that 27-year-old Kristen Becker, or 26-year-old Kristen Becker, restaurant manager, was really good at customer service. 36-year-old Kristen Becker, who's been a comic for 10 years, will tell you to shove your cheese sticks up your ass, because I don't care. You know, like, I think, like, one of the first nights we were there, a woman came up to me and she was, like, really hand motions, like, well, we did that, and I literally mocked her back to her face. I was like, well, I don't care what you did. And then I was like, I cannot. And so
don't let me talk to anyone.
Don't let me. So now my assistant manager Andy is now the operations manager because he's 27 and he's a real nice Polish guy who can just take it. You know, you can just yell at him and he's like, "That's great. We're gonna take care of you. No worries." So yeah, there was a transitional time for me, and I learned that I've lost some skill sets and gained some others. And so now I try really hard to just be the one that isn't in the moment while you're yelling at me, and you know, maybe I'll call you the next day when I could just smooth it over or something like that. But so no, it didn't go well. We learned immediately that it was not my skill set, even though I thought it was. I was like, I could do this. I've done this, but you know. And then Mark just said to me from Helium, he's just like, you've spent 12 years talking at people, not listening to them. I was like, you're right, and I'm just accepting that.
A comedy show is a monologue.
Exactly, yeah. And so Andy's really good for that. Yeah. And now my role is more of a overall development, you know, more of a general manager's role. Where he's doing the day-to-day, and I'm doing the, you know, we're going to develop comedy classes, and we're going to develop, you know, the other thing that I really want to point out is, and you haven't been there, and if you were there, you would be bragging with me, but how nice the venue is.
That is the one thing I've heard from every single person who's talked about it, is how it's perfectly set up to be a comedy club. Like,
and it's also perfectly set up for something that Buffalo doesn't have, and that's the 275-seat, fully AV'd conference center. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, we've got a drop-down projector screen. Yeah. You can plug your, and we've got a high-def projector. We've got sound for up to 6 mics. You know, we've got a built-in kitchen, so if you need to do a daytime banquet that needs to be catered and you've got speakers, we have a $30,000 sound system in there. Oh, wow. So it's like state-of-the-art everything. So that's part of my job, too, is going to be really pushing the daytime use of the space. Oh, yeah, because I know for a fact that Buffalo doesn't have this size because I looked for it forever to do other shows. You know what I mean? I was at Nietzsche's. But you can't bring your, you know, Western New York Realtors Association banquet to Nietzsche's. So.
Oh, my God, I would pay money to see that.
That would be pretty good. So that's part of it, too, is just me getting out and kind of being like, hey, you know, working with the convention, the Visitors Bureau and the Convention Center and the Buffalo Niagara Partnership, and just saying, hey, here's this awesome downtown space now that can accommodate, you know, you've got a big convention in, you know, reaching out to conventions and be like, hey, here's something to do on Friday night with your 100 attendees or whatever.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so that's kind of where my focus is going. And Andy's going to work on keeping things running and making it an awesome place to go hang out, and that way I can just shake hands and kiss babies or whatever else I'm supposed to do.
I don't think there's much kissing babies at comedy shows, but that'd be...
You're right, there probably shouldn't be. No. All right, sorry. You know, kissing ladies.
There you go.
All right, shaking hands and kissing ladies. Shaking ladies and kissing hands. I don't know.
Either one works.
Either one.
How has it been? Have you been like taking a seat back from going on stage yourself? Like,
yes.
Has that been a little interesting?
It's been hard. That's part of why I'm going to New Orleans, is because I'm finding that it's an integral part of myself that I get on stage and let some shit out. Like, I just have to. I've just been too busy. I mean, this is a big endeavor, and just this. You know, it's funny because all the kind of all the promotions just kind of happened. So Andy kind of moved up just in the last week or two, and it's freeing me up to kind of get on stage a little bit more.
I think I saw some dates on your website.
Yeah, I just started adding some. Going to go to New Orleans. Myself and Dykes of Hazard is now with Neon Entertainment, which is a great college booker in town.
Nice.
Did you know that they're here?
I did hear that.
They're here, and they're huge. Yeah. And you would never know they were in Western New York. Yeah. And I believe actually all of Snooki's college appearances are managed out of Western New York, believe it or not.
That is...
Right? So
now I know.
No, here's the thing. I used to bitch about, like, she makes $25,000 to go talking to college. And I'm like, but $5 of it goes to Harlem Road. That's cool. Right? Like, she's better for the economy than a lot of things in Buffalo are, you know?
Snooki is creating jobs more than
exactly.
Yahoo.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really, I'm just now getting back into, there's a notebook in my back pocket right now, you know, that kind of thing.
Is that your process? Do you have to write it down? Like, do you have like just ideas like scribbled places?
Yeah, I get really mad at myself when I have a great idea and I don't just like jot it, because then it goes away. Like, and then it'll resurface like 6 months later, like, oh, I'm supposed to talk about that, you know?
Yeah.
Ideally, I would like to put to rest everything that was on the CD and just start fresh, because I'm just at a completely different point in my life.
The Carlin, Louis C.K. like
Absolutely. I think it's becoming the way of most comics at this point.
Yeah, it seemed like nobody was doing that, and then he like was like, why don't you just do this?
Yeah.
And now you see more comedians who are just throwing away.
Well, and there was also, the internet has changed everything, and the accessibility to people recording things and taking it and putting it up.
So hearing jokes.
So our need to really crank out material, sometimes even, I don't know, do you know Doug Stanhope at all? Do you listen to him at all?
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite human beings and people and comics and whatever. But, he has a really good point of, he hates it when people are recording because, man, the first time you say a joke is not the end. Like, there's a lot of editing to be done.
Oh, God, yeah.
But if you take that and you put that up, then it ruins it for everybody. You don't even let me get to the part where I make this a great joke.
Yeah.
Because now the premise is out there and it's shit.
Yeah.
And I can't work with it, you know?
It's like bands who get, like, their demos leaked, and it's, like, not a full version of a song, but now people are, like, listening on their iPad.
Yeah. You're like, we're not done with that yet. Just relax. You'll get it eventually, you know?
Yeah, that's gotta be rough. And it's kind of weird because, you put like Louis C.K. releases an hour, and I feel like with the way he can release it now and everything like that, like everyone hears that across before it was just HBO, and maybe like HBO was in like 10% of households,
right? Yeah, right.
And now like anyone can listen to it, and so everyone's heard those jokes. Like I saw when he was 12, I took him to his first comedy show, and it was Louis Black. And, like, we grew up, like, loving Louis Black.
Right.
I still love him to death. Like, the White Album, I could probably recite word for word.
Nice.
But when we went to it, it was like seeing a greatest hits of Louis Black. Because we had listened to his CDs so many times. And, like, I was, like, in my head, I'm, like, finishing the punchline. And, like, I was, like, so, like, brokenhearted. But it's rough. It's got to be hard. Like, if you... I don't know.
It's the thing about, and this is what you say to everybody, the difference between comedy and music is, in music you want them to sing along. In comedy you have to surprise them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the point of, what comedy is supposed to do is evoke a spontaneous, uncontrolled reaction from you.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is weird, first of all, when you think about it. Like, you're trying to get a stranger to convulse in a way that, you dictate. It's that element of surprise that gets lost as soon as the joke's heard, Exactly. So it is tricky, but now we're just at a point where we have to just keep cranking out new material all the time, or find another way to, which is, for me, it's like Dykes of Hazard. I do sketch too, and that helps too, because now I've got two different kind of platforms.
Yeah, it's a whole different medium, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
The only time I saw it, we saw Patton Oswalt in Rochester, and for his encore, he did like a famous joke of his, like Mr. Bojangles. Like,
did they recite the punchline with him?
No, but
I saw when Stanhope played Nietzsche's the first time. They were like shouting out jokes, like, all right, I'll do one.
Yeah.
I'll do one that you tell me.
Yeah.
And they literally said the punchline with him, and I was like, I am at a rock show right now. Like, it was incredible. It was really cool.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It was basically the same joke, but it was almost like watching a band perform a song live. Like, he changed enough of it in his inflection that it made it, like, unique to the moment, but it still was the same joke. Like, that was the only time I was like, that was really cool. Like, it wasn't verbatim, but...
Yeah, it's interesting how you can, like, go back and just play with your cadence and your timing and just kind of, and that's part of the joke writing process, too, is like, okay, well, I've been saying it this way, and it's getting a decent laugh, but I'm just going to try and say it this way and see what happens. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's not even intentional. You know, sometimes I'll get halfway through something and I'm like, why did I even say it like that? Oh, but it worked. I'll start saying it like that now,
Yeah, just reading the crowd and the audience and everything. Yeah. I think that kind of wraps it up.
All right. Chris, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think we had a good talk there. I got to say thank you for bringing Helium to Buffalo and all these amazing acts.
Thanks for not showing up yet, asshole.
I know.
I really appreciate this thing you did that I haven't gone to yet.
I promise. I wanted to go to Mike Birbiglia, but I was out of town.
Fair enough.
I was super excited that he was coming to Buffalo because he's another favorite.
Nice Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. And
and thanks for saying that about the CD, by the way.
I really love
it. It is because it does. It's like the stereotype, and it gets prejudged, right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
I think for Buffalo, I'm like, no, just listen to it. I swear.
I mean, I knew you were talented. I've heard only
no,
good
not
things.
even just talent, but just caliber of the recording.
Yes,
and the kind of stuff that you expect that it doesn't sound like I made it on a mixtape.
If I was listening to that, I would have no idea that you were a local comedian. Right. I just knew that you were a comedian who made a really good CD.
Right. Thanks.
So,
That's sweet.
Thank you for coming down here. I really
Thanks
appreciate
for having
it.
Me.
All right.